Good Tuesday. Hello. That was an exciting intro. Hi, it's Tuesday. My name is Mike Bifulco. I am Director of Technology for thegymnasium.com, the very website you see on my screen right now. Gymnasium is a code school wherein we provide free online courses on design and development of technologies having to do with the web. As I've failed to mention in the past, code school is maybe not the best term for it. We give lots of design courses. We have lots of courses on using tools that can help you in your work. If it's technology related, we have courses on time management, copywriting, and actually, for the sake of it, today I'm going to talk about... Where is it? Defeating Busy, our time management course. Actually a really cool course that teaches you a bit about project estimation, time tracking, and working with clients. Very, very useful if you're a freelancer or perhaps a consultant working for a consulting organization, or just generally someone who needs to get a better handle on managing your time. Lord knows I run into these kinds of problems from time to time. It's easy to get too busy, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed. This course will definitely arm you with some of the tools you can use to make life better in that respect. You should go take the course. It's free. As always, all of our courses are free. They're self-paced. They're video-based. They are online courses, and we would love it if you took one. So, I'm on this webcam again. I keep doing that. That's cool. We'll stick with that. So, all that being said, I'm going to get down to business. Here's what we're working on this week. We have been packaging up a replacement for this jobs module here that we can use to provide more dynamic content to our students. And as such, we're pretty far along. My topic for the stream today... getting ready to ship, which I've just changed on my overlay. Hopefully you can see. Oh no, I don't even show that anymore. Never mind. Regardless, what we're hoping to do today is kind of the last little button-up things to be able to ship this thing so that we can get our new job module ready to go for production. So I expect to have myself ready by the end of stream today to send this off to my team for testing, and hopefully then from there we can verify that everything's good, maybe make some tweaks to the design or the way things function, and send it up hopefully to production so that this jobs module starts making us look better, make everything smarter, and hopefully we can add more better job finding tools for you guys, our students. So, at the end of the stream last week, we had basically worked with Heroku to, of course I haven't logged into Heroku here, to package up our app. We created a Heroku deployment pipeline, which allowed us to promote our app from staging to production. It also automates the process from Circle CI to make sure that tests pass before we update staging or production, and generally gives another layer of robustness to this whole process. If I bring this tab over, hopefully, hopefully some of this should look familiar. We set up the pipeline here. What I'm going to try and do this week is build on top of that. So now that we've got an app that gets correctly promoted from staging to production, we should be able to build out the platform side of it. So in other words, here I've got my localhost 8000, which is my local dev environment. Let me double check my chat here, make sure no one's yelling at me. Cool. Yeah, so this is my local dev environment, upon which I have my jobs module microservice running in an iframe within the site. You'll note that this one is actually on the catalog page, unlike past weeks. So I've gone back and moved this to the catalog, which is where it should be, as opposed to on the dashboard, which is where I was prototyping it earlier for the sake of it. In this tab, I've got just the microservice running. So this content here is identical to this content here. Just in this case, it's how you say squished to fit the container it's in. So What to do now? Well, there's a few things that need to be done. I'm going to switch over to my IDE. And I'm going to zoom in from the onset today and readjust some sizes here. I've broken this out. I've done a few different things that should make life easier. So I'm going to pull up the courses page template, which is this guy here. On the courses page template, if I look through the right-hand column, the sidebar contains an include, which pulls in the find jobs page, which is what we'll be largely interested in, and then a sidebar content from our GitHub repo that we use for CMS, which is where you see this upcoming courses goodness. What I'm hoping to do today is to work with the things inside of find jobs here, which is this file, which is just an iframe now. This used to be a big, gigantic couple hundred lines of markup sort of thing. Now, of course, that couple hundred lines of markup is coming from the iframe, which is, in some cases, localhost when I'm testing locally. It's Heroku when we're on staging and production, and may move to AWS or something like that eventually. But anyway, for the time being, this iframe pulls in the microservice, and what we need to and smartenize is this here. The 61 represents a market. Yes, this represents the market that we're pulling down from. So if I, how best to do this? My code is all over the place. The code isn't all over the place. My windowing is all over the place. Okay, bear with me for a second. Don't freeze on me, VS Code. I'm going to open up the jobs module and just show that off for a second here. We shouldn't really need to tweak this too much today unless I'm mistaken. But we, in the job module, when it loads, it takes from its URL. Maybe it's the job list that does that. Somewhere in here, we grab from the URL the market, which is not here. Let's see. Index.js, app.js. It's funny how quickly I forget how all this stuff works. Yeah, okay, so we pass in a market ID from the route based on some information that we know from, from what's in the URL. So in other words, React router DOM goes and parses the URL that's being passed in and extracts from it either a market ID or latitude and longitude, which it then down the chain turns into a market ID, and then rendering the job list for the nearest market. Well, we need to hook in this bit using geolocation tools from the browser, which is something that we have available to us in various pages on the site. And so we need to essentially, when the page loads, grab the geolocation if we have it available, if we have access to it. If we don't get access to it, then we're going to shortcut and short circuit and default to market ID of Boston. And actually that, I believe, is done just with this route here. What I may want to do is move all of these. No, I think I'm going to leave this for now. But at any rate, what I'll show you is if I pull up my localhost 3000, it goes to the default market anyway. There goes my cat. So you'll have to ignore his sorrowful meowing. So if we don't get anything from geolocation, which of course the browser will ask for permissions on, we'll default to the Boston view, which comes from pulling up that iframe with no latitude and longitude associated with it. I did also give myself this convenience URL for market ID. It's going to end up being that in the current state of things, this will mostly be for convenience for testing rather than plugging in a latitude and longitude manually. I can just go and do this. But in the future, this this market ID will come in handy if we add a preference to the user profile that says which market they're nearest to. So we won't even rely on geolocation at that point. We'll just say you're nearest to this market. Go for it. You know what? I think we already have that. Okay. I think we do. let me see if I can figure out how to pull that out. So when you register for a gymnasium account, one of the things we require you to do is supply a market that you're nearest to from our registration form. So if I log myself out here and go to sign up, you'll see down here, select nearest region. This maps directly to the markets we're talking about. So because I know that all of our students will have these, I can pull it from here and circumvent entirely the need for geolocation. And then I can just use this URL on this page. I can plug it in here. Okay, let's talk about how to do that. I don't know if I can even do that. So we're just going to test a bunch of Pythonery. First, let's see if I have access to Python on this page by refreshing on my courses list. Yes. Okay, so I can tell that the user is logged in. Let's echo out the user.name. Oops, that might be, well. Now I've got to define, of course, what's in here. Let's see what happens if we just print user. It's going to say object, isn't it? Staff. Huh. Okay. We've got to figure out how to get that market ID. And this is where some brain atrophy is going to unfortunately come into play, because I have been dancing back and forth between a couple of different versions of OpenEdX, and some of the syntax for this changes. So I think that if I put user.email here, it might not work. Okay, so that still does work. I don't think it's user.profile. Ooh. We're getting closer. This might mean I'm crashing it. Also, all I'm trying to do is get this thing to spit out the market that we're working with for this user. And come to think of it, this staff user might not have one associated. I might have to go and register an account locally to make that actually work. Boy, yeah, this seems slightly freezy. Okay. Okay, nice. Okay, so I'm gonna register a new account. This is on my local edition, so it will look a little different. There's gonna be a bunch of fields here that I haven't. Oh man, I haven't configured that locally. That is a stupid bummer. Okay. Huh. Well, this reminds me I should be testing for a few things. If yeah, look at that. That's not great. Cool. So this is an error on my microservice where it's not great if it doesn't work, essentially, if I supply a non-working market ID. So we do actually need to modify the microservice, and I should do that while I'm thinking of it. So this is showing an error from joblist.js. And it's this function, get market from ID. And I need to add a couple of cases here. Isnan is not defined. Oh. I forget it's not math.isnan. It's number.isnan. It's not a function. What? Okay. Oh. Nan is not a number. Cannot read property ID of undefined. Okay, so I think in this here I need to provide the fallback. So and we're going to say let market return market, and we're going to say if market, if not market. So if that comes back as undefined, we're going to return markets and then dot 60 markets 60, which is Boston, I believe. Constants 10 is Boston. 10 is Boston. 60 must be Charlotte. No. Oh. I see. That's not good. Default to Boston if we do not have a valid market ID supplied. So we will have to push an update to this jobs module, which will mean that I'm gonna log in back here. That means that in my dev stack here, I can say and here I'm going to simply say that, which I think should work. So when I refresh this, when I refresh this page, yeah, there we go, and defaulted to Boston. And if for some reason this came back as 60, which I believe is Charlotte, and we refresh the page here, Austin, okay, yeah, whatever, we would have a different value. So the assumption here is that user.profile.market will return the market ID for the given user. We're then pulling the iframe from the appropriate URL, which we're going to have to do some switching on this, and passing in the market that we are provided. Because on my local edition here, I don't have market plumbed in, it's always going to default to Boston no matter who I'm logged in as. But we should be able to test this on our staging environment to see, to make sure that the market actually populates, or rather the jobs populate for the right market. Yeah, okay, cool. Thanks, Josh. I'm sorry to be late to checking the chat. Let's do that. Just gonna spit that out. So we have username, first name, last name, profile cache is active, state is super user, is staff, last login, password, date joined. Well, I'm going to have to do a better job of figuring out where that profile actually lives. In all likelihood, this is not the right spot for that. And that's okay. We can figure that out. It's a reasonable fallback for now. I should drop in a to-do there. We can... So from here... So what I need to do now also is switch this based on the environment we're in. And the right way to do that truly is by setting an environment variable for that URL. So I'm going to pull in my console here. Zoom in a bit so you can see. Okay. So we're going to go edit this, and we're going to look for, there we go, and we're going to add a key here, and this will be jobs module base URL, and in my case I'm going to say localhost 3000. We don't want a comma there, we want an HTTP, and we're going to do that, and then we're going to restart the server. And I'm going to grab it the same way I do in other places. So we're essentially going to assemble this jobs module base URL. We're assembling a URL to pull that from two bits of two Python snippets. I should wrap this in a check to make sure that we have at least the URL available, and if not, just render nothing there to have a nice clean fallback. Okay, looks like that worked. Oh, I don't need this any longer. Andrew's all mad about my terminal setup. Man, this is white text on a gradient. It's perfectly fine to read. Okay, so now I'm pulling this in from that URL, and I can show that off by setting this to 60 again and refreshing, and this should change to Austin. Sweet. Okay. So I just need to make sure that environment variable makes it up to our staging and production environments, which takes a bit of coordination. Okay, and you guys are really critics of my console here. Do you want me to I'm just going to let you soak it in for a minute. This is what you get when you leave me to my idle thoughts. This is the kind of nightmare that comes out of it. So, what this means is that now we can switch the source of this iframe. So I'm gonna do what I just said I should do. And actually, there's a way to put a fallback in there. Yeah, okay. I don't know that I want a fallback. Because yeah, I'm just gonna be conditional about it here. There's nothing good to fall back to if we don't have it, because I don't want to make any assumptions about environment, so I'd rather render nothing. Yeah, okay. What did I do? Ah. Great. So as long as we have that URL, we'll render the job module. It gets passed in a market based on what will inevitably end up actually being where the user market comes from. If no market is provided, we fall back to Beantown, and it can obviously change after the fact if users update their market here. Is that it? I think that's it. Okay, well, let's get some pull requests going. So, return default market if no valid market ID provided. And this should go in a new branch. Sure. Let's see. I didn't leave any badness in there, as far as I can tell. There's even a comment. We'll commit that. We will push that to this nice bug branch that I've made. I think if we then come to here, oh no, I'm sorry. So then if we, what's the next step? GitHub, Gymnasium, Jobs, Microservice. If I open a tab to there and open a pull request, check for valid or return a default value if no market ID is provided. I will assign myself what this PR does if someone tries to access the microservice from a URL with a bad malformed market ID, we now default to Boston rather than crashing. And I will assign, well, we'll say this is a bug and an enhancement and create a pull request. And now I should see sometime later, look at that, right away. So I could create a review app. Whoa, it's doing it automatically. Heck yeah. Okay, well, we'll wait till that builds, and then we'll test it out just to show off that that's still working. And in the meantime, we can take a look at my terminal. Yeah, this is pure white, baby, with a magenta semi-transparent highlight. I know you like it. Don't act like you're not impressed. Y'all just ganging up on me. We can view the log here. Honestly, I'm really excited with how well this is going. I'm surprised it's coming together as well as it is. And then when you look at Jason, what's wrong with looking at Jason? Explain that one to me, Andrew. Okay, it's extra awesome. Yeah, well, that's in Vim, which is a garbage tool for garbage people anyway. Okay, so now if I view this, what do they call them? Review app. If I take a look at this review app, we can test that my fix works. So I can say ta-ta for now, and that should default to Boston. And I should be able to put in an emoji. And that should also work. Defaults to Boston. And I should be able to put in a number. And that also defaults to Boston. So we're going to say that that is well tested. We will merge this pull request. It should make its way up to staging. I'm going to delete this branch. Oh man, that is so fast. That's so cool how that works. We'll see a build happen here eventually. Okay. Oh, you know what? You know what we're going to be able to do on stream here. So, I of course am making an assumption that the user is authenticated, and thus, that's bad. Someone needs to slap me right in my face. Yeah. So, if the user isn't authenticated, of course we won't have a profile to look at. So we need to assign the market then based on geolocation, and failing that, fall back to Boston. So we still have work to do. That's good. I like work. Who doesn't? Oh, look. Okay, it's building. Make sure this all works. Okay, so this is now updated and deployed to Heroku, which means, ooh, that's version 10, a nice round number. That means if this one actually should be gone. Oh no, this will stick around for a week or something like that. If I open this guy in my browser, we should have the same situation. Ooh, maybe not. Maybe cached. That's interesting. Yeah, okay. Looks like it was just cached. So now that works. And that works. And cows. That also works. So that would do it for the staging environment, and that means I can release this to production, given that it passes my muster for testing here. The two ways to do that, I could hit this promote button and it would be promoted up to production pretty much instantaneously, or I can open a pull request here, which is typically the way I tend to do it, though I'm not really a software engineering traditionalist, master, whatever you want to call it. I don't necessarily know one is better than the other, but this is the way I tend to do it. So we're going to create this pull request, release more robust URLs, and I will assign myself. I usually like to have a release label, so we're going to put one in. This PR represents release, is meant for release. Give it a nice green color. Okay, this release includes fix that for URLs with bad market IDs. now return Boston as the default. This would essentially serve as, let's call this release notes. If this was a traditional or a bigger project and we had multiple pull requests coming into this, I would essentially type up release notes for each one of those, and you could tag the release or put it into a changelog somewhere so that the world could see it. And so this is good. It passes muster on Circle CI because this hash essentially has already been tested. And if I merge this, it will go up to the production URL. Bam. And we'll see another build happen here any minute now. And once that's done, we can work on the geolocation bits. Next time I live stream, I'm going to have the absolute worst looking console possible, and you're all just going to have to deal with it. Yes, no? Auto deploys master. We did that. Surprised this is taking so long. Anyone? Yeah, there we go. I will be right back. It's getting cold in the old home office here. Sweet. And that's a completed build, so that'll be on production as well. V5 is now out in the wild. That's lovely. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so now let's work on the other side of this. Actually, I just want else. So if the user is not authenticated, we're going to have to pull the market from geolocation. From browser geolocation, if possible. Grab market from user profile. I'm making an effort to comment my work more thoroughly, because future Mike will appreciate that. Expected an indented block in file at line 1, character 1, line 6. Sorry. Oh, I see. It wants something to be here. Okay, so what that means then is if I log out and come back to this page, it will no longer say Boston because we've passed it a specific market. Yep, cool. Okay, so that says Austin. So what I want to figure out how to do is magic in a market from browser geolocation. So what we're going to end up having here, I think, okay, so here's what we're going to do. So this is an interesting problem because all of this magic, pulling the user profile from, pulling the market from the user profile happens on the server side, meaning if we're authenticated and there's a user, that's lovely, and we can pull all that and then dump it into this iframe. However, the browser geolocation happens on the client side in the browser, which means that we probably have to do some work to get a compatible Python package to talk to that browser geolocation. Or I think what we can do is rearrange this a bit, and we're going to say, so first of all, if there's no base URL for the job module, we are just going to render nothing. So this if is good, and I'm going to take this logic and put it here. So I'm going to say if user.is authenticated. Okay. We're setting up a couple of different scenarios here. Oh, geez. Okay. And so we're saying if they're authenticated, let's go ahead and render this iframe with the market that we're going to grab from the user profile, which I'm just going to move down here. And we'll do that like so. And this means they're not authenticated. Fall back to geolocation. And we're going to render much the same iframe. But instead of market ID here, this is going to be the geolocatable ID lat long that we get from the client side. We're going to have to figure out how to do that still. But for my purposes, what that means is this should work. So I can grab all of this and save, and I believe this will still work. No. Oh, because I'm not logged in. Yeah, okay. Didn't render because I'm not logged in at the moment. I could drop this back in and basically say, otherwise we're going to render this with 60. This is equivalent to what I had a moment ago. Just now there are two different iframe setups for rendering. What did I forget? I guess I don't need this. Okay, so now it falls back to Austin. Our job now is to figure out how to update this from the geolocation. We're getting closer. And to be honest, I know we run some geolocation right now. We're gonna, okay, everything that's in here is the old logic for these old job modules. We are going to get rid of that eventually. For now, I'm going to end up borrowing some of the code from it and putting it in the global page header, I guess. Actually, it probably makes just as much sense to drop it in here. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna where'd it go? I'm gonna grab this geolocation goodness. Display jobs for geolocation. Get market from geolocation. Oops. Okay. So this is gigantic, horrible spaghetti code from before. Before I really wised up about a good approach to this, and I apologize because this is exactly as confusing as it looks. Anyway, I'm hoping to clean that up, and here's what we're gonna do. Is equals jobs microservice container. We're going to do one of these, and it'll just be an empty div. That's cool. We're going to then eventually plug an iframe in there. For my purposes, that will be we're going to move this iframe into here with some JavaScript eventually. There's some logic to be plugged in first. Sorry. Responding to what I assure you is a critical text. Y'all are on my time. All right. Here we go. So here's my geolocation code. I promise you we'll clean this all up and make it look nicer in a moment. So if geolocation is not enabled, we don't need that. But this is saying hey, let's look up the callback for this. It's been a while since I've messed with any of this stuff. Success, a callback function that takes a position object as its sole input parameter. So just gonna clean this up a little. Okay, we're gonna say let market 10. And here's where I'm going to put in a debugger. We'll see what comes in as that position. And we're going to put a debugger in for the error as well. So let's go and refresh this page. We'll see what comes back in that position object and pick it apart. Open up my browser tools, please. Okay, we got a position back. Position has coordinates with latitude and longitude. So all I have to do is say position dot coords dot latitude and dot longitude. I don't know if that's safe syntax to use. Longitude. Making sure we've got both of these. This is when we'll do our populate an iframe with in the URL, and this will be with no market. Great. Okay. So instead of calling this market, I'm going to say, we'll call it base URL. And we're going to do some gross magic here and plug in this. Oh, that's going to just grossify everything. Okay, cool. So that should be my base URL. This is the base URL for the API coming back from Python. And, well, I'm just going to refresh this page and grab the debugger again, just to make sure we're still in the clear. Should come back after a moment. Okay, so now we have latitude, we have longitude, we have a base URL, which is all good. And now I have to create an iframe. We're going to create a helper function to do that, perhaps. Create jobs iframe equals create iframe within the container div that has with the supplied URL as its target. So we'll do containers because there might be multiple. And we want a parenthesis and not a brace there. So this is a jQuery selector function. We're going to say containers dot each. And for each container, we're going to drop in an iframe. And I've got to figure out how to do that. So let's grab a browser window. I've got some search going here. Okay, oh nice, that's handy. I didn't know that syntax was a thing. So I should be able to say iframe and give it some context of an object, and that context is going to be what happens in here. It's got an ID, it's got a class, it's got style. You know it's got style. All right. This is interesting. That might not be a great way to do this. We might get rid of that ID. Oops. Actually, I think I am going to get rid of that ID on both accounts. Okay, so, and we're going to say containers.append. Wait, no. Container.append frame. And I think that'll do it. That's a very interesting bit of code. Can't say I've ever done something like that before. So, what this function does, this create jobs iframe function, it creates an iframe given the input URL. Well, I'm going to call this inject jobs iframes. So given the input URL, it iterates over every single one of the jobs microservice containers on the current page. For each of those containers, it creates a frame. Actually, we can do this outside. So it creates a frame being the variable which holds our iframe. So it creates that iframe using this fancy jQuery syntax. Oh, no. What I'm forgetting is my iframe needs a URL, and that's why we need to do this here. No, actually that's not true at all. Okay, so I'm going to move this outside of the loop just to be a little more efficient. There's the iframe, and to be even more sassy about it, no, I'm just going to do that. So it creates an iframe with the given URL with this ID that's supplied with a class that we use to adjust the vertical height of the iframe with our handy dandy iframe resizer JavaScript utility. Some style rules that we have appointed as necessary, particularly the border. The width of 1 pixel is interesting. We might tweak and get rid of some of these things. Anyway, it creates that iframe. It then iterates over all of the containers on the page. And for each one of those, it appends one of these frames to it. We now have to call that function and give it a URL here. And here we're going to say base URL plus slash, and then the market ID, actually latitude and slash and longitude, which is of course what our job list expects from this latitude longitude after a slash. That's what we're doing here, latitude longitude after the base URL. And in the case where we don't have latitude and longitude, we are simply just going to inject those jobs iframes without a appended latitude and longitude. And I'm just going to swap this debugger and the thing. And we'll refresh. Let's see what I broke. Okay, we have a latitude, we have a longitude. We're putting together a URL of 3000 slash latitude slash longitude. We'll skip this, we'll go into this, that should have created an iframe. Looks like it. Okay. That should get all of the containers. There's only one. We're then going to put a breakpoint here. In the first container, which will be here, we're going to append an iframe and can carry on our way. Did that work even remotely? Potentially, no. Let's find out. It was an adventure, though. You got to give me that. Oh, did it go at the bottom? No. Okay, let's... I've got to look for this. I did create that div. That, for some reason, that div now contains all of this stuff. Yeah, we're just going to do that to be safe and refresh the page. Okay, that's more like it. Hopefully, step in here, we'll get to our... This might not be working. It would appear it's not working. Okay. Oh. How long has it been since I have jQueried? Never really too long. I just kind of forget all of the millions of ways to do this. Insert content specified the parameter to the end of each element in the set of matched elements. Oh, nice. Okay. So I think I can just do this and get rid of that loop bit. That might simplify it. Let's set a new breakpoint to here. Grab that. Yes, we probably don't need that debugger any longer. Uh-oh. Didn't like that. What does the console say? Ah, okay, okay. So, that is not the variable name. Let's refresh one more time. So we have a couple of courses. Yeah, we do, don't we? On jQuery. I gotta get rid of that line. Frame being a variable. Oh. Okay, okay, okay. We are getting drawing ever so nearer, closer. That's great. So, let me get rid of this debugger line. And after this, I need to put in a bit of jQuery that does the resizing. And I think that'll do it. Let's see. So it got my location. It's now going to append that iframe, load it, and resize it. Boom. That's fresh as heck. and it's got my local location. I am in Charlotte. It knows that. It loaded a Charlotte jobs module. How good is that? That's pretty good. We could do the nice thing and there are a couple of different things we could do here. We could provide a loader GIF so that there's some kind of a spinner there while this is loading. We could load this by default with Boston with the default URL, and once we determine my location, change the URL of that iframe, which is clever. Dang, this is all good. This feels really good. I'm really excited about this. Boy, geolocation does take a second though, huh? Swag. Yeah, I think it might be... okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit the code as I have it right now before I go back and mess everything up, because this is working right now, so... this is all the changes I've made. Yes. Yes. I don't need those changes. Cool. Okay, so load jobs module conditionally with smartness. Now we're going to go and mess this whole thing up. And instead of doing what I just did, which is perhaps a bit naive, we're going to see if we can figure out a way to jQuery change iframe URL. Yeah, easy enough. Okay, oop, that's not what I wanted to do. Sometimes I just get a little excited. Okay, so what to do? Okay, this is going to be another significant code rearrangement. In this world, instead of injecting jobs, we're going to navigate oops. So we're going to say there's our base URL. If we have a geolocation, we're going to say that's what we're going to do. Oops, oops, oops. Come on now. Okay. So we're simply going to say we're going to grab this we're going to grab that. We're going to say any iframe rendered on the page with that. We're going to say navigate to that URL. And this is then going to be that. And we don't need an else condition here, an error condition, because we're going to load the default one anyway. Okay, so what we now need to do I now need to go back and rearrange some of this code. if user is authenticated, we'll grab that market, and we're gonna say end if here. I'm gonna say, okay, yeah, this is gross. I could provide the fallback here, or I could do nothing. Actually, we might not even need to define that. Okay, so this is saying if the user is authenticated, we'll specify a market. Either way, we'll render an iframe. And here we're going to say if there, I think that will do. So no matter what, it renders the iframe. If they're not authenticated, we don't need this any longer. We execute a bit of JavaScript. And I can simplify this. Okay, just trying to make more straightforward code. So now I've assembled this nice URL. I don't need to do that anymore. We're just going to navigate once we get our geolocation position back from this base URL, which I only need if we have a latitude and longitude and all that other stuff. So simpler in some ways, more complicated in others. Let's see if this works. So it should come back with a Boston What did I do? What? Oh, this is, wait, what's it complaining about? Line 15, character 1. Line 15, character 1. Oh, that might need to be in parentheses. Oh, no, wrong language. Right? Okay, so let's try that. Local variable market reference before assignment. So we need to assign market no matter what. We're going to say okay, I'm cleaning up my Python here. There. Can I set this to null? Does that work? None. It's called none in Python, I believe. Okay. Let's try that. Okay, set to Boston. It's going to find my location and render Charlotte. Super cool. Okay. Man. That was awesome. Okay. There's Boston, and there's Charlotte because it found me. That's pretty cool. It's not too bad. It's a little slow, but this will only happen for anonymous students, or not even students, anonymous users. Dang, yeah, I think that's better. So, a more straightforward, well, a better approach to using geolocation. All right. So that seems, I think that's it. I think that's good. And I think at this point, barring, of course, getting this environment variable pushed up to the right place, we can start testing this internally for release. How do you like that? That's cool. Oh, you know what I wanted to try and do? I don't know if we need this. Let's see. Oh yeah, we do. Okay. Well, we've done the thing then. I'm going to commit this code. I'm going to push this code, I guess. Yeah, and we'll get that up to staging, and that'll be a piece of cake. Yeah, okay, that's great. And it's 10 to 3, so I think that's going to be it for me today. I hope that was informative in some way. That ended up being just an awful lot of jumping back and forth between React and Node and JavaScript and HTML and Python, and I don't think we touched any CSS today, mercifully, unless you count this. But we're about to put a bow on this thing. That's really cool. So I think that might be it for this project for a while, unless we have to make some changes. We will. I'm going to. So the things I need to do here now basically are lift and replace the job module everywhere it is on the site. The other place being on the home page, we have a job module that shows up. So this one here needs to be replaced as well. But otherwise, shoot, that's it. We're done and dusted on that. And we'll move on to the next project next week or whenever. Actually, I won't be streaming next week, but in a couple of weeks we'll move on to the next project. So you guys have a good afternoon. That's it for me. If you need to shout at me about how ugly my terminal is, you can find me on Twitter at irreverentmike. You can email me at mbyfulco@aquent.com, and you can go follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/irreverentmike. I will shout at you next time. See you guys.